Hello, good morning. My name is Luis Martinez, and this is my presentation for chapters 1 through 4 of Leading Change. I'll be focusing on the talking points. What I mean by talking points is the main points that have been brought up throughout the 4 chapters in terms of like how uh these things impact modern companies. So let's get started. So sorry about that. So the first topic that I found while reading the chapters is complacency and urgency. What these two are two types of thieves that go hand in hand because the main point I found was to make complacency can make can do more damage than good. In order to balance counter against that, you need a sense of urgency because most companies nowadays have depended a lot on their past successes. And because we depend a lot on our past successes, sometimes it could just add up to more denial. So it's more of like that classic example of was like, oh, you need to brush your teeth, but then it's like, no, I don't, no, I don't. And I'm good. I don't need any of that. And eventually, slowly but surely, you'll build up gums and cavities. It's a weird analogy, but it's a way to say it's like if you keep on denying you don't need it, you don't need it, you don't need it, eventually you're gonna be seeing the results of not needing it. Even if complacency is low, the problem is that they still won't be able to accept the things they need. So it's like they will undervalue a lot of things. For example, like undervaluing the sense of teamwork or a sense of a need for a team. So to counter against these things, you'll need a sense of urgency because a sense of urgency gives a reason for people to understand and need something as soon as possible. Because without a sense of urgency, people won't give an extra effort to, push forward and try to get these changes coming through. The second theme I talked about was management and versus leadership. The main point I found was like they're both not the same thing. And from a from a normal standpoint, it might not it might not seem like that, but the truth is it's not the same. Management is more of just like a set of processes that have been established in order to just like run operations smoothly. An example would be like I work at a retail store, so I have managers. Managers already understand what the process is all about. It's like, okay, you gotta make the schedule, you gotta make sure that everything's cleaned up, you gotta assign everyone their roles and stuff like that. You gotta oversee what they're doing, you gotta make sure everybody's doing their bagging processes correctly. However, with leadership, it's more of like they define what the future want. They define what the future will be and how they'll achieve the future. They're the ones who are striving for change. They're the ones who strive for something different. And because nowadays most companies have an emphasis on management, most of them see it as just another form of leadership, which is not really true because, well, like as I mentioned, management is already a preset, is already pre-made, while leadership takes time to develop. And because sometimes people like to put managers as their quote unquote leaders, sometimes they don't have the leadership skills needed. And that could lead to a lot of a lot of problems, especially with like overvaluing their position, lack of listening skills and a slower development. So next thing up is building the power center. The power center meaning a guiding coalition. Guiding coalition essentially is like a main goal, like the main piece of it's like the main motor in the car where it's the thing that fuels and powers the entire machine. Having a coalition is the foundation for success as a whole. This is because this is what creates the vision, which we'll talk about in the next slide. But having a strong correlation is necessary as it gets people around you to understand what the goal is, and they see what is necessary to go forward too. The things that will be needed in terms for a guiding coalition, as they mentioned, was a position, power, expertise, credibility, and leadership. Those are all 4 essentials needed for a strong guiding coalition. However, some things could go wrong within a guiding coalition. The main 2 things would be like egos. make sure that everyone's ego's in check. Sometimes there will be somebody with a high enough ego to the point where they'll just say, "Oh, my opinion's right, yours is not. I know what's best, you don't know what's best." And it's best to be careful and either just remove that person and just keep moving forward. Or sometimes there's also someone called a snake where they'll just sneak in and just try to destroy trust within each other, which in turn could kill teamwork. So, as I mentioned earlier, a guiding correlation is a transitional from your vision. So, you start with your guiding correlation, and then you eventually will move up and you'll see the vision come through. A vision is a tool, as I mentioned, that drives your successes. This is because once you have your established vision, you'll be able to fully understand like what kind of like decisions, what kind of like choices you'll make in order to achieve that vision. And without a vision, it means like no guide to decision making, meaning many people will just be stuck sitting there, like not knowing what to do. And sometimes a lot of debates will happen where people will say, "Oh, this should be right. This should no, this should be right." So it's just a constant back and forth without a clear vision. A rule of thumb that was mentioned is if you cannot describe like what the initiative will be or what the vision is to people and you can't get them to understand, you're kind of much in big trouble because at that point is it's just like what are you even doing here? Like what are you going to do? It's there's no real sense of identity. So after that, the obstacles that will come a lot will be structural barriers because companies are a lot like humans where we're told to change, we're told to have new, different, unique things. And while, yes, it's important to change, but it's best to change for yourself first and foremost. But second of all, most of us don't like change. We deny a lot of things. We're like, oh, I don't need to change this or that. We don't need to change. We don't need this. We're all good. That's just like I mentioned earlier, the sense of complacency, where you're just in constant denial. And because most companies don't welcome change, it can be difficult to implement any sort of changes around a company. So having, your strong correlation, your vision, that's great. But like you still got a bunch of hurdles to go through, especially with how companies don't like change. And sometimes these obstacles could destroy like a sense of hope where people will be like, I'm gonna follow with you. I know what I want. I know what you want. We can work together. And then if they see these barriers where people will just be like, oh, I don't think this will work out, or maybe they're right. It's just constant, just like demotivational. So the only way to get this through would be anchoring in the very culture of an organization. So meaning like getting this sort of like new vision set in stone within the culture and being able to understand that, okay, this is how our vision, our new idea will get through this culture and how this culture can benefit from it. And then if you start explaining slowly but surely on this, people will understand and those barriers will come out smoothly. Something that also should be noted is that in the process of changing, you also need short-term wins. Short-term wins are not harmful, as people would like to say, oh, but you're celebrating too early. You shouldn't be doing that. That's another thing that was mentioned in the book where like people would celebrate too early. Well, that may be true that you can't celebrate too early and it could, make you overconfident. It's not harmful. It's pretty much great for fuel. One of the best examples I could give would be like a championship team for like say a sports team or like they have their vision to win the championship, right? Their goal is, of course, to just go through, through regular season, through the playoffs and make the finals. But the short-term wins would be more of like, okay, so we made it through these games, we did well, we improved the offense, we improved the defense, we got this person involved. Small wins like that are the things that'll build up more confidence in turn to getting to where you want to be. It will also keep complacency down and encourage people to just be analytical and detailed on what they're doing. So they'll analyze the things that they could improve upon, like I mentioned earlier, with like the about with like a sports team, they'll be seeing that like, okay, I need to improve on my defense, or I need to improve on offense, or what else can I do, or just ask questions and help each other out. Because without these short-term wins, just employees will just give up on it or just actively just go up against your idea and vision. I'm going back to the company vision, not just the sports vision. So now the last thing here is the culture anchor. A main point I found was culture will change last, and it will not be the first thing that will change immediately because most companies have an established culture, or some companies don't have a culture. Getting people involved in the culture can be one of the toughest things because not everyone will see the point of it. Because some people will just be like, "What's the point? We're just working." The importance of like a culture would be to at least help improve performance, but also have specific behaviors impact that performance, which is very important because you want to make an environment happy. You want to make an environment great where people could come and be like, I'm ready to work. I'm so excited. I like working here. You want to make people feel welcome. This requires a lot of time, and it's also very important to get others involved as well, which not just means your current employers, but also the future generation to understand like this is how we do things, this is what goes in and what goes out, and how you'll fit in. However, in that process, we did mention that like celebrating short-term wins is great, but as I mentioned earlier, it shouldn't be too great to celebrate constantly and just let yourself loose and say, "Oh, we're good. We don't need any more like that, like complacency all over again." Because when it comes to like culture, people will find small little details to see what they can exploit and say, "Oh, this culture's not working," and try to bring it all down and just destroy what you just built upon. So it's very important to not only just celebrate and say, okay, we did well, we're doing great, team, but also say, okay, we're doing well, but let's keep on working on this, this, and this. So say that we have a lot to go through. It's not just one and done, we got more. So the conclusion I like to bring up here is transformation is more of a marathon rather than just a sprint. A marathon will take time. You need to build endurance. You need to go slowly but surely. And every time you see like the marathon, there's like small goalposts and say, okay, you're halfway there, you're almost there, you're 25% there. So transformation is more of a marathon for leadership. Change is a very long process that will not happen just in one day. It will take time. It'll take a lot of effort. It'll take some, great times, bad times. We must understand how we have to encourage people to follow our ideas. We have to have a great vision. We have to have a great, coalition. And we have to anchor culture. We have to anchor the right cultures so people can understand and follow through. And more importantly, you also have to drive up urgency so people can understand this is a change we need. This is necessary. It's not no fluke or anything like that. We got to push forward. And this was the end of my presentation. Thank you so much. I hope y'all have a great day.